students, in the previous class we're discussing about the chapter flow of liquids. We have studied till the topic viscosity. In this topic we have discussed and understood that the velocity of the liquid in the different layers of the liquid will be different. Just as shown in the diagram over here, the velocity at this line AB is 0. As we go on to this side, this layer of the liquid A, the velocity is less than the liquid in layer B and then the liquid in layer C. So the velocity increases upward. That is what we have understood. Now why is that so? Because it is due to the property of the liquid by virtue of which it opposes the relative motion between the adjacent layer. Okay, that is why the velocity is different. Now with the same concept we will discuss about velocity gradient. Now velocity gradient means the rate of change of velocity with perpendicular distance. So now in this diagram given over here, suppose we consider a liquid flowing in a streamlined motion on a horizontal surface OX. So OX, you can first of all refer to the diagram A. So OX is a horizontal surface where the liquid is flowing in a streamlined motion. So I'll just give the timer over here. So now when the liquid is flowing over here in a streamlined flow, the liquid layer in contact with the surface is at rest while the velocity of the other layer increases with increasing distance from the surface OX. So OX, the surface OX is at rest. As I've told you, the velocity of the surface OX will be 0. As we move on to PQ, the velocity is different, and as we move on to RS, the velocity increases further. Now, the highest layer flows with maximum velocity. That means layer RS has maximum velocity. So now we consider two parallel layers PQ and RS at distance. Distance PQ from OX is Z and distance of RS from PQ is del Z. So it is just a fraction of more distance than the previous distance. So over here the distance is Z. Now the distance from OX to this layer RS increases by this amount del Z. So this is more in this layer RS. And in the different layers we have different velocity. Now Vx is the velocity of the layer PQ and Vx plus del Vx, that means the velocity is increased by a small factor del Vx is of the layer RS. So the velocity of RS is more than the velocity of PQ by a factor of del Vx. Keep that in mind. Now, thus the change in velocity in a perpendicular distance is del Z. So the change in velocity is only by a factor of del Z, and this is the distance in the del Z amount of distance, how much velocity is changing, increasing, del Vx amount of velocity is increasing. So there is a change of velocity with perpendicular distance of flow of liquid. So the change of velocity, that is del Vx by its perpendicular distance, that is del Z. Okay, the perpendicular distance is del Z. This is known as velocity gradient, that is rate of change of velocity with its perpendicular distance. Now the unit of velocity gradient is second inverse. Okay, unit is second inverse. Now let us consider, look at the diagram B. Yeah, it's just become a bit messy. I'll just show you another image. Now look at the diagram B. Let us consider a liquid layer of area A. There is a layer of liquid which has got area A at a height Z. Okay, the height is Z above the layer OX. The layer of the liquid immediately above it tends to accelerate it with a viscous force F, while the layer immediately below it tends to retard it backward with the same viscous force F. So now what happens if there is a layer A? There are two layers above and below it also. So the layer of the liquid immediately above it. So if there is a layer of liquid immediately above it, what it does is it tends to accelerate it with the tangential force. The velocity of this above layer is more, it will accelerate more, whereas the layer below this layer, okay, below the surface A, there is another layer of liquid which will retard it backward. That means it will not let it accelerate. So the layer of the liquid above and below A have different type of acceleration. One is accelerating more and one beneath is retarding with the same amount of force, that is F, which is known as viscous force. Now, according to Newton, the viscous force acting between two layers of a liquid flowing in a streamline motion depends upon two factors. Okay, the force which is acting over here above and below this layer A, this force F depends upon two things. First of all, it is directly proportional to the contact area of the layer. So force is directly proportional to this area A. Secondly, it is directly proportional to the velocity gradient between the layers. So F is directly proportional to the velocity gradient, which is del Vx divided by del Z. Okay, so F is directly proportional to area A, again to del Vx del Z, or velocity gradient, which in turns look like this. Okay, F is directly proportional to A, again it is also proportional to del Vx divided by del Z, which is velocity gradient. Combining this two, what we get is this equation over here. Now when we remove the sign of proportionality, we put another constant which is known as coefficient of viscosity. So this nu over here is known as coefficient of viscosity, and there is plus minus sign over there, which indicates that the force between two layers is a mutual interactive force. On the layer A, the layer above it exerts a force in the forward direction, while the layer below it exerts a force in backward direction. So in this previous diagram, what we can see is this force is in a forward direction, which means plus. This force is in a backward direction, which means minus. That is why we have plus minus in the particular formula over here, that is the formula of force. This is the coefficient of viscosity. So what we can say is the coefficient of viscosity is the viscous force per unit area of contact between two layers having a unit velocity gradient between them. So that is a definition of coefficient of viscosity. So SI unit of coefficient of viscosity is kg per meter second. Okay, this is kg per meter second. This is the unit of coefficient of viscosity, that is N. So now we will also discuss about important points regarding viscosity. Why it is so useful and why we need to learn this. First point is, it depends upon the nature of flow. That means the coefficient of viscosity, which is nu, it depends upon the nature of the fluid and does not depend upon the area or the layer of the layer or the velocity gradient between the layer. Now in the previous definition over here, force depends upon the area and velocity gradient, whereas this factor, which is coefficient of viscosity, does not. So coefficient of viscosity does not depend upon the area, neither the velocity gradient. It depends upon the nature of flow. Second one is, at 20 degrees Celsius, liquid are more viscous than gases. So there are values given. For one example, you can take it as water. The coefficient of viscosity of water at 20 degrees Celsius is less than that of air at the same temperature. Now the third point is effect of temperature on viscosity. The viscosity of the liquid decreases sharply with the rise in temperature and becomes zero at boiling temperature. On the other hand, the viscosity of gases increases with rise in temperature. So viscosity depends upon the temperature, and for liquid and gases it reacts differently. Now the effect of pressure. With increase of pressure, the viscosity in general increases, but only for water it decreases. So the viscosity of gases is almost independent of change of pressure. Last one is effect of density. Viscosity of liquid increases with increase of density, but reverse effect is observed in case of gases. So please note down these points regarding the viscosity and viscosity, coefficient of viscosity. Now another topic is Stokes' law. Stokes' law is about the velocity of the sphere when it falls from a height. So just understand that, and with that reference we'll discuss this topic, that is Stokes' law. Effective force on a body falling in a liquid. Okay, another topic for Stokes' law will be effective force on a body falling in a liquid. Now when a ball is gently dropped in a liquid, then in the initial stage velocity of the ball is small, okay, very small, as in the beginning the viscous force is negligible. So when a ball is dropped in a liquid, the velocity in the first stage will be very less because the viscous force is negligible. As much the ball falls with acceleration developed due to effective weight. Okay, so now what happens afterward is the ball will be dragged by the force of acceleration, which is developed due to the effective weight of the ball. As a result of this, what happens is the velocity of the falling ball goes on increasing. Initially at the first stage over here, the velocity is 0. As it goes further, the velocity increases, as shown by this arrow over here. The layer of the water in contact with the ball tends to move with the velocity of the ball. As the ball is dropped down, what happens? This water will start moving, will be replaced by the ball. As a result of the motion of the ball, there is a relative motion between the adjacent layer of the water. So this layer of the water will start moving because of the dropping ball. Hence, what happens is a viscous force is developed in water. So the viscous force is developed which opposes the motion of the ball. So because when the water starts moving, what happens? A viscous force F will be developed which will try to oppose the flow or the motion of the ball which is dropping down, which will tend to stop the ball. The magnitude of the force goes on increasing with the increasing velocity of the ball. As the velocity is 0 over here in the initial stage, when it drops, the velocity increases. Okay, this V increases. And what happens is, with this increasing V, force or the viscous force also increases. Then what happens is, a stage is reached when the opposing viscous force becomes equal to the effective force driving the ball. Now the ball is being driven down by the force of gravity which is due to the weight. This value over here is the effective downward force, whereas this value over here is the viscous force which is acting upward. So what happens at a point is there is a downward force and an upward force. At a point when the velocity keeps on increasing, it will be equal to this upward force. The net force on the ball then will be 0 and the ball attains a constant velocity called the terminal velocity. Okay, this V is referred to as terminal velocity when it reaches a stage where the velocity becomes constant because downward and upward force will be equal. Thus, the viscous force limits the speed of the ball falling in a liquid. So what a viscous force does is, when a ball is dropped in a liquid, it will try to limit the speed. That means it will try to decrease the velocity or the speed of the ball which is falling in a liquid. Now this thing is not only applicable to liquid, it is also applicable in different scenarios which we will talk later on. Okay, when we drop anything from a height, due to the viscous force, what happens? The velocity tends to decrease. Now what Stokes did was, he showed that if a small sphere of radius r, okay, if a small sphere, over here is the sphere of radius r, is moving with a terminal velocity v, okay, it is moving with a terminal velocity v through a perfectly homogeneous medium of infinite extension. That means this liquid over here is a homogeneous medium. Not a mixture. Homogeneous means a single liquid, not a mixture. Then the viscous force. The viscous force acting on the sphere, this ball over here, will be this much. This is what Stokes told us. This is the force acting on the ball due to the liquid, where nu is the coefficient of viscosity of this medium. This nu is the coefficient of viscosity of the medium. R is the radius. V is the terminal velocity. This is what Stokes has shown us. And this value over here is the effective downward force. I'll show you how this value came. For that, we need to do some calculation. Now, effective downward force. How the effective downward force is being calculated? Effective downward force is actually weight of the ball minus the upward thrust. Whatever the weight of the ball is there, minus the upward thrust will be the effective downward force of the force of gravity. Now, weight of the ball is, the formula for weight is mass into gravity. Okay, weight, that is the formula for the weight. Now, what is the mass? Mass is volume into density multiplied by gravity. This is what we have written over here. Okay, this is the weight of the ball, V rho g. Now this rho is the density of the ball, where r is the radius, which has got the radius r. It is falling in the liquid which has got density sigma. Now minus the upward thrust. Upward thrust is V sigma g. Sorry, this is sigma and g. Upward thrust means it is due to the weight. So what are we calculating over here? It's the weight. Okay. Again, the weight is volume into density into gravity. So this is what we have got. Now taking V common, what we get is this equation. Now V is the volume of the sphere and the formula for volume is 4 by 3 pi r cube. Putting the value, this is what we get next. Now what you have told in the previous case is, over here what happens is, there will be a stage when the upward force and downward force will be equal, and at that point there is no acceleration and the net force acting will also be 0. So according to Stokes' law, this is what we get. Effective upward and viscous force will be equal. So this is what we can write. Upward and downward force, downward and upward force is equal. From here, from this equation, pi and pi gets cancelled. R over here, it becomes square, and this is 2 into 2, 2, 3, and what we get ultimately is taking this 3 and this one, that is coefficient of viscosity, towards the other side. What we get is, we get V is equals to 2 by 9 R square rho minus sigma G divided by nu. This is what we get, and this is the terminal velocity of the ball, which is directly proportional to the square of its radius. So this is a terminal velocity of a ball which is falling in a liquid. So I hope it's clear up to here. Now we'll also discuss about the application of Stokes' law. Now the first application of Stokes' law is Millikan's experiment. I think you haven't heard of this before. I'll just tell you in the brief. Now, Millikan's experiment is an oil drop experiment to find the radius of the radii of a small oil drop by measuring its terminal velocity. So it was actually for determining the electronic charge of an electron. This experiment over here, Millikan's experiment, is used to determine the charge of an electron. Now, how did he did that? He applied this method of finding out the radii of small oil drop by measuring the terminal velocity in air. So he dropped an oil in the air and he tried to find out the velocity, which is known as the terminal velocity, and with the help of that velocity he could be able to find the charge of an electron. Second one is velocity of raindrops. Now, raindrops are formed by the condensation of water vapor on dust particles. When they fall under gravity, their motion is opposed by the viscous drag in air. So when the water drops fall into the air, what happens is, the air which is present out there, it applies an upward force which opposes the velocity of the raindrop. So as a result of their fall increases, the viscous drag also increases and finally becomes equal to the effective force of gravity. The drops then attain a terminal velocity which is directly proportional to the square of the radius of the drop. In the beginning, the raindrops are very small in size, and so they fall with such a small velocity that they appear floating in the sky as cloud. As they grow in size by further condensation, then they reach the earth with appreciable velocity. Now, third one is parachute. When a person with a parachute jumps from a flying aeroplane, he descends very slowly in air. In the beginning, the person falls with gravity, which is acceleration, but soon the acceleration goes on decreasing rapidly with the parachute is fully opened, until the parachute is fully open. Therefore, in the beginning, the speed of the falling person increases somewhat rapidly, but then very slowly. Due to the viscosity of the air, the acceleration of the person becomes ultimately zero, and the soldier or the person then falls with a constant terminal speed, which can be shown by a graph. Okay, there is a graph of time with speed. So in the initial stage, the acceleration goes on decreasing rapidly until the parachute is fully open. Therefore, in the beginning, the speed of the person increases somewhat rapidly. So this is how it increases. Then, due to the viscosity of the air, the acceleration of the person becomes ultimately zero, and it falls and the person falls with a constant terminal speed. So speed becomes constant. Afterwards the speed will stop increasing, it will become constant. So this is a type of graph for a person falling from with the help of a parachute. So up to here we have discussed about Stokes law. This chapter is quite long, so I will do it in a section. So we'll stop till here for now. We'll continue in the next class with another topic. Okay, thank you.